Previously, we talked about reading the Bible from a historical perspective. Today, we are going to talk about the literary interpretations of the Bible. The literary method is different from the historical method because it focuses on reading the texts as they exist now, rather than focusing on learning about the past. Here, we are interested in the books of the Bible as works of literature. So, for example, we would want to analyze the plot, the setting, the characters, vocabulary, sentence structure, literary devices, and other things like that. If any of you enjoyed taking English classes during high school or majored in literature during college, then you probably have a good understanding of what I am saying. You may remember having to write essays or book reports on classic works, such as Treasure Island, which is one of my favorites. You can apply the same tools when you are studying the Bible as world literature. To use a practical example, let us go to the Gospel of John. A literary interpreter of the Bible would observe the following. We can see that the Gospel has two basic parts. The first part goes from chapters 1 to 12, and the theme of that is about Jesus' ministry of signs to demonstrate his identity. The second part goes from chapters 13 to 21, and it covers Jesus' passion, death, and resurrection. The famous biblical scholar Raymond Brown liked to refer to those two parts of John as the Book of Signs and the Book of Glory, because, of course, the Book of Signs is about the signs, and the Book of Glory is about Jesus' glorification. Another aspect of the literary analysis of John's Gospel we can look at is the contrasting vocabulary that we can see throughout the work. So we can see in the prologue, which is the first part of John's Gospel, that, quote, "the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not," end quote. The conflict between light and darkness is a theme that appears throughout the Gospel, and if we are aware of this, then it helps us to understand how those terms function within the book as a whole. So as you can see, overall, if we understand the literary structure of the biblical books, then it is easier for us to interpret the individual stories or scenes within the complete narratives or plots therein. But as we saw with historical biblical interpretation in the previous post, the literary method is also not enough by itself for Christians to read the Bible as God's Word. So why is that the case? Well, as you may have noticed, literary analysis is just the study of the text itself, essentially as a work of art. It helps us to understand the structure of the text, but on its own, it does not tell us what God, the one who inspired the text, is teaching us for our spiritual lives. That is the goal behind a different style of interpretation that we will study in another post, and that's called the theological interpretation of the Bible. So that is all we have to say about the literary interpretation of the Bible. This was a much shorter post than usual, but I hope that you enjoyed the discussion. You can visit my website at jdreiner.com to see more writings and posts. You can also follow me on YouTube or Odyssey to view my content in an audio-visual format, which a lot of people really like, including me. That's why I make it that way. Finally, donations are always appreciated, and you are invited to get in touch with me by emailing me at jonathandreiner@gmail.com. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.